to sanction the facility if it's in breach, on a commitment from the industry that we represent to enforce that sanction. So we still have this task of taking the industry down that path. Engagement with our critics, commercial sensitivities, all of those things have meant that it hasn't been easy, but we've been committed to it. Also, the thing that we've learned is rather than vacating the field in terms of communications just to our critics, we've got to tell our story. We've got to be transparent about the dilemmas, the challenges, and our own failings. We've got to be genuine in our efforts to transform international welfare standards and practices, and a commitment to continuous improvement, and be proud to advocate for that. And we've also got to have faith in the framework that we've developed and engage extensively in continuous improvement. These initiatives, this framework is what we're committed to build upon, and we are committed to seeing our strategy fully implemented.
The benefits, which I'm sure you're aware, around what happens when an organisation or an industry achieves its social licence. This idea of having legitimacy, having credibility, having trust, ultimately having an impact on the industry and an individual organisation's reputation. Looking at long-term business success, making it easier to conduct business, and the fact that stakeholders are more willing and wanting to do business with you. Improved market competition are some of the other benefits. We've all seen, though, what happens when an organisation or an industry loses its social licence, and animal welfare has been a significant issue for this particular industry. Delays and costs. Simon, you mentioned in your presentation $2 billion in the export industry. So think if we lose our social licence, the significance of the cost of that to the industry. We have boycotts or protests, and the more visible activists can be, the more attention it gets, the greater implication or pressure it puts on an organisation's social licence.
So in the state of South Australia, where people have adopted no-till farming, and the photo actually shows what happens if you actually don't adopt that. For the meat processing industry, but also for other food producing sectors, whether you're a farmer or whether you're further along the value chain, we need to be able to communicate and engage with the consumer about what we do and why we do it. We also need to be actively involved in leading and shaping the way forward. To not do so could actually be at our peril in the longer term. If we ignore that, and I acknowledge what Simon Crean said earlier about if we don't step up and take on that leadership role as industries, we are at risk of going down the same path that the greyhound industry did in New South Wales, where at the stroke of a pen overnight, suddenly your industry can change dramatically.
I think on the processing side of things, and this is something that I admit I don't have a huge amount of experience in, but I think as much as possible, talk about the relationships you have with your farmers, with your consumers, how committed you are to supporting everybody in every level of the chain of process to doing the right thing, to making the right decisions. Talk about the pleasure you take in bringing your family to a table, a barbecue on a Saturday lunch. Just keep telling these stories and building them up and be very active, and I think that can be very powerful. So as much as you can, encourage the farmers in your network to start telling their stories, to get in there, because I think that this sort of constant building up of little stories from all over Australia, farms everywhere, that can build up into a really great, bigger story that people want to hear. But I really think in terms of farming, it's incredibly apt. People want to know why we do what we do, and they will respond if we share our stories. So I look forward to seeing a lot more stories out there, and I hope that through my work and everything that we're talking about here today, we can keep building that collective bank of goodwill, because it can be very powerful. Thank you.
People trust us that we are the right type of people to actually look after those animals, and we will look after those welfare. The fact that we have the facilities, the trained staff and the capability to do it doesn't give them any confidence. We have to show that we share their values to actually do what's right. Because I'm selling the product doesn't mean that you're not going to come under issues later on. And caged eggs are a perfect example. We have never sold more caged eggs through the supermarket chains than we are at the moment. Free range is a growing category, but in terms of the barn category, cage volume growth is 27 times greater than barn egg sales at the moment. So if we sat on our hands and said, oh, well, we're selling the product, let's just not worry about it, the whole thing that the consumer's asking us, the activism stuff, will have a major effect on our industry. So the fact that you're selling something doesn't actually mean you don't have to worry about social licence. They're not related.
Importantly, and our consumers want to know about the food and where our food and where it comes, or their food and where it comes from. They want to know how it's produced, and they want to know what impact it's having on the environment, how people are dealing with animals in particular. They want to know about the economic factors that are affecting our industry, and they also want to know about how we're looking after our people and our communities and how their resilience is holding up. And this has been the surprise thing for me as chair, finding out with our stakeholder engagement that people want to know much more about our industry and our beef and the food that they're eating than just the animal welfare aspects. And there will be a reporting back. Initially it'll be an update in the first year, and then we hope to have a yearly update, which will then feed into the meat industry strategic planning process. We think that's important because, as we know, things just change so rapidly in terms of social licence. And in terms of the beef industry, it's about how we keep up with that, what is material to our stakeholders, and how we are going to address their expectations.